Chapter 1. It should be the duty of every clear-thinking citizen to resolutely and without stint assert the right of individualism against the might of public monopolistic companies, for in many ways the old established family concern is the basis of our country's prosperity. From a report of a speech by Captain H.C. Lowthen, MP, reported in the Swanbridge Messenger. Swanbridge was asleep. The shops showed blind faces, the newspaper placards were full with the proclamation of news already 12 hours old, and about the pavements and gutters lay burnt matchsticks, crumpled cigarette cartons, and bent omnibus tickets. In the daytime this litter went unnoticed, but now, with a cold January wind to lift the scraps of paper into dance, there was a fantastic suggestion about the moonlit, humanless streets, as though each piece of waste was the nighttime presence of one of the mortals who walked the streets by day. And in the shrill whine of the wind and the dry flutter of paper, it was easy to imagine a thin echo of the voices that filled the air during the day. Over Swanbridge, the four-faced clock tower of the town hall was poised, each of its fatherly moons watching a different district of the town, and throwing a robust challenge to the true planet which, sailing high against the racing clouds, was dying quickly into its last quarter. One face looked towards the east, where the steeple of St. Dunstan's Church glimmered like steel in the moonlight against the dark yew trees that moved uneasily in the wind. Beyond the parish church, misshapen in the light and shadow of the night, the town gave way to long meadows and orchards, and the land rose slowly to the downs that ran in a curving north-to-south sweep, which formed part of the rim of the natural basin in which the town lay. In the south, the main street, with its ribbing of smaller streets and lanes, dropped sharply towards the River Troon. Directly above the town side of the river there were no houses, and the meadows, whose winterly flooding had stopped any building on them, were given over to allotments that suffered little by the floods, and gained each year a layer of alluvial deposit that made vegetables and flowers flourish with the coming of spring and summer. On the other side of the river, which had a higher bank, were one or two villas, a stretch of open land used as a recreation ground, and a favourite pitching place for travelling circuses, and the playing fields of the grammar school and the various athletic clubs in the town. To the west, the town stretched away past the hospital, the railway station, and the locomotive yards, in row after row of houses, some new, some old, and most ugly, until it thinned and trickled into orchards, wheat fields, and twisting country lanes. The northern clock face shone on a jumble of gables and red roofs that marked the oldest part of the town. Even the broad main road, which came sweeping southwards from London to the outskirts of the town, had to crib itself within the narrow walls of overhanging houses as it passed through this quarter, and the straightness which it loved was sacrificed to a succession of twists and bends that were cursed by lorry drivers and traffic policemen 100 times a day. It was in this part of the town, as the clock began to strike midnight, that a light still showed, impudent and assured. It came from an uncurtained window on the first floor of a building which stood on the east side of the road. It was an old building. The first floor overhung the ground floor by some feet, like a frowning forehead, and in the centre, below the forehead, was a wide doorway supported by two carved posts. On each side of the door were windows of diamond-paned glass, long, shallow windows that were never intended for commercial display purposes. The roof of the building was covered with warm red tiles, most of them discoloured by growths and twisted with age, and was cut into 3 dormer projections that seemed on the point of toppling into the roadway in their anxiety to lean over and see what was happening on the pavement below.